You already know the ache. You smile, you nod, you say yes. The room warms for a second, and your throne grows colder. You think you just earned peace. In truth, you traded the keys to your city for a round of applause. The predators do not roar, they clap. Love without teeth breeds contempt. When every answer is yes, your value collapses like a coin with no metal in it. People test you with small asks, a quick favor, a harmless shift, a tiny deadline, you pay, and the price of you drops. The market of attention is brutal. What is abundant becomes cheap. If your approval is free, your presence is discounted. They do not plot openly. They just learn. They learn that your boundaries are rumors, that your time is a public road, that your pride is negotiable, and once they learn, they move you like furniture. Look at the office corridor. The manager who needs you to stay late again because you do it so well. Look at the group chat. The friend who vanishes until rent is due or a ride is needed. Look at family. The relative who calls only when guilt can be used like a key. None of them must hate you to use you. They simply observe that you cost little to move. In politics, a power with no deterrent invites trespass. In your life, a heart with no teeth invites handlers. The court of demands never sleeps. Every life has a court. Factions with preferences, appetites, and timing. In the morning, it is the boss. At lunch, the colleague who shoves their task across your plate. At dusk, the partner who says, "If you loved me, you'd understand." At night, your own fear of disapproval sits on the pillow like a minister whispering decrees. Each faction makes an offer. Surrender a little autonomy and we will love you today. The courtiers smile, the music plays, and the siege begins in smiles. Watch how it happens. You answer emails at midnight because silence might offend. You agree to the extra shift because conflict feels like fire. You pick neutral words until your language becomes fog. This is a soft siege, no battering rams, only banners of kindness marching through your gates. By the week's end, you are exhausted and strangely invisible, a ruler attending everyone's banquet but your own council. When you seek relief, the court asks for more. You train them to think your yes is endless. Now count the hidden tax of harmony. Time, hours shaved from sleep, learning, and restoration. Self-respect, the quiet memory of every time you swallowed a no and felt your spine bend. Leverage, the power to negotiate, forfeited each time you obeyed without terms. You thought you were avoiding debt by dodging conflict. But conflict was not a debt. It was capital for future stability. Each principled no could have been an investment, small interest now, major returns and reputation later. Consider a simple ledger. On the left, the favors you grant, the apologies you issue, and the peace you purchase. On the right, the reciprocation you receive, the respect you gain, and the autonomy you keep. If the right side stays thin, your treasury is being looted under soft music. Nations fall not from one invasion, but from 1,000 unguarded ports. People are the same. You do not collapse in a day you erode in polite weather. So here is the painful truth. People-pleasing is not kindness. It is abdication masked as warmth. When you chase universal love, you offer universal access, and universal access is not intimacy, it is occupation. You do not need cruelty, you need clarity. A calm line, a measured no. A schedule that is a wall, not a wish. You do not become heartless, you become sovereign. Be fair, be firm, guard your throne. Velvet can be a rope. It feels gentle as it wraps, and then it tightens. You believe approval is shelter, you pay with smiles, and the rain seems to stop. But approval without respect is not a deed in your name. It is a lease that can be canceled the moment a better tenant appears. Read the contract, month to month, revocable at will, no penalties for the landlord who walks away. When your worth depends on applause, your home belongs to the crowd, they can evict you with silence. Affection without respect is a lease, not a title. A title is recorded in conduct, your consistency, your boundaries, your skill under pressure. A lease is recorded in moods. Watch The Office. You cover shifts, you rescue sloppy projects, you say yes to the 9 p.m. email. Praise arrives like flowers, bright, fragrant, already dying. Then a new favorite appears and the bouquets move to a different desk. Your work was useful, your spine was not memorable. In politics, Alliances hold when interests align and collapse as soon as one side senses weakness. In life, likable without credible lines is just cheap rent. People come and go and the price of you falls with every unguarded yes. Look at romance in the age of swipes. Someone adores your availability, calls you rare, and then a shinier profile appears. The lease ends between breakfast and lunch. No breach, no remorse, only a new story told elsewhere. Because affection purchased by constant concession costs the buyer nothing. They never invested in the real you. They rented your attention on short terms. A title requires proof, competence, character, and the willingness to walk when terms are poor. Without that, you live at the mercy of appetite. The person who respects you reads your limits like law. The one who only enjoys you treats them like suggestions. Now draw the curtain, the theater of niceness. The stage is crowded, compliments glitter like props, and laughter warms the lights. But listen for the script behind the script. You're so reliable. Translation. Keep absorbing my chaos. No one does it like you. Translation. I prefer your silence to my effort. Your family. Translation. My needs outrank your limits. Niceness can be sincere, but in negotiations it often lubricates your surrender. The actor knows when to smile, when to touch your shoulder to steer you, when to bid for sympathy, and when to feign helplessness so you will work for free. Use a simple test. Remove the gift and see if the grin survives. Tell the colleague, I can't take this without a trade. What can you cover for me? Watch how the music stutters. Ask the relative who loves you dearly to respect a budget. See whether affection holds or melts into lectures about duty and the past. Ask the partner who praises your kindness to accept a boundary that protects your sleep. Does the compliment remain, or does it molt into accusation? If niceness breaks at the first sign of terms, you were never loved. You were negotiated. Social media is a theater with standing room only. Likes masquerade as loyalty. You soften opinions to keep the room warm, and the algorithm claps, but count the conversions who shows up when you are not pleasing, who defends you when you hold an unpopular line. That is respect. The rest is applause inflation, sprayed on and wiped off by the next scroll. Applause is not ownership. It is weather, pleasant, changing, and unfit to guard your crops. Now to the price of soft power misread. You were told that kindness is currency, true if it is scarce and backed by reserves. When you flood the market with kindness, the price of your favor drops to zero. Economies punish abundance without limits. You become the sale rack, always available, eternally discounted. Strategic generosity requires scarcity, timing, and conditions. Give in ways that punish exploitation and reward reciprocity. Publicly honor those who repay. Quietly end access for those who do not. Let people feel the predictable cost of misusing your time. Think like a treasurer. Your day is a budget. Your attention is capital. Your reputation is credit. When you spend without underwriting, no collateral, no terms, you create moral inflation. People expect more service for fewer thanks. Soon, their minimal gratitude feels like a favor to you. The roles reverse. The debtor behaves like the lender, and you say thank you for the privilege of being used. The nation of your life runs a deficit, hidden by polite accounting. Consider the freelancer who takes every revision for free to keep the relationship. At first, clients praise the flexibility, then requests multiply, quality wobbles, deadlines slip, and the same clients complain about professionalism. They will not remember the free hours. They will remember the one missed delivery. Soft power misread becomes a noose. You paid generously and your stock still fell. Competence without boundaries does not inspire loyalty. It inspires greed. Or take the family peacemaker who absorbs every argument to protect the holidays. People arrive expecting a referee who forfeits their own joy. The moment the peacemaker asks for help setting rules, the chorus accuses them of turning cold. But watch the long game. The home with firm edges becomes calmer, more welcoming and more honest. The home with endless compromise breeds sharp whispers and quiet resentment. Stability favors the predictable, not the pliable. Your life is a state, borders make peace possible. This is the velvet trap, comfort that dulls vigilance, tenderness that taxes your future, affection offered as a ribbon and tightened as a rope. The exit is not rage, the exit is criteria. You define what earns your yes. You announce lead times, not apologies. You tie generosity to clear terms, deadlines, trades, limits, and you enforce them with a steady hand. Some people will leave when they cannot rent you cheaply. Let them. Vacancies, free rooms for citizens, not raiders. Return to the principle, affection detached from respect is exploitable. Seek both or accept neither. In statecraft, love without fear invites betrayal. Fear without love invites revolt. In your life, regard without boundaries becomes theater. Boundaries without warmth become prison. The balance is simple and rare. You are kind and you are not for sale. You listen and you do not bend on the essentials. You give and you remain the owner of your time. I choose respect as the price of my love. You were governed long before anyone gave you orders. The council sat inside your chest. Fear, shame, and the hunger to be approved. They drafted rules while you were still learning your name, and you have enforced them ever since. Childhood edicts became law. They arrived as feelings, but they operated like statutes. Stay small. Don't anger them. Earn love. A slammed cupboard became a siren. A raised eyebrow became a courtroom. A cold shoulder became a winter you still dress for. You learned to read weather faster than you learned to read words. When the air changed, you shrank. When the room smiled, you worked. And with each repetition, the policy hardened. Minimize your footprint, maximize your usefulness, and survive by pleasing. Check the audit trail. At school, the quiet child was praised as no trouble. You studied that praise like a royal decree. At home, the easiest child attracted the fewest storms, so you became efficient shelter. You fetched, you fixed, you apologized in advance. In your journal, you called it being good. In practice, you were passing legislation. Article 1, obey quickly. Article 2, predict desires. Article 3, never be friction. Without knowing it, you wrote a constitution of self-erasure. Hold that paper to the light. Do you still obey those clauses? You stall before saying no because the old law promises punishment. You over-explain to soften verdicts no one issued. You volunteer before the request is even formed. And when you try to amend the statute to assert a boundary, to rest, the invisible governor bangs the gavel. It warns of exile. It forecasts humiliation. It asks whether peace is worth risking for one honest sentence. Habit votes yes. You surrender again. Punishment, memories became strategy. One harsh consequence trained the reflex that now runs your politics. Maybe you told a truth and watched love turn into distance. Maybe a small failure summoned a storm that taught you effort is never enough. Maybe a public scolding painted your cheeks with heat while the room learned how to hurt you. Your body kept the minutes like evidence. When similar weather gathers, you do not think, you mobilize, placate, smooth, retreat, save the city even if you abandon the castle of yourself. This is not weakness. It is training. Soldiers drilled under fire move before they reason. You were drilled in the theater of moods. The tactic that once kept you safe became universal, preemptive concession. You compromise ahead of demand. You laugh at jokes that bruise you to preserve a narrow corridor of safety. You say yes with a smile, and then pay the invoice alone. The calculus seems precise. A small loss now to prevent a larger loss later. But the world has changed and the numbers are wrong. Yesterday's emergency became today's default, and default is now your jailer. Connect the alarm to the miscalculation. Your nervous system is a swift messenger, but it does not negotiate treaties. It rings bells. It cannot count votes. The modern office meeting is not your childhood kitchen. The manager is not the parent. The colleague is not the older sibling who weaponized affection. Yet your pulse treats every frown like a coup in progress. You imagine a purge if you object. You picture exile if you name the cost. So you govern by anxiety, not by interest, and you pay in silence. Now consider identity as a negotiated treaty. You traded pieces of yourself for temporary peace and called it maturity. First went your loud colors, the music you loved, the opinions that glowed too bright for the room, then your schedule, sleep, exercise, and learning time, all exchanged for goodwill credits that never cleared the bank. Next your voice, you spoke last, then softly, then not at all unless the climate was perfect. With each concession, the border moved inward, and the map of you shrank. Treaties have clauses, read yours aloud. I will not burden you with my needs, if you promise not to abandon me. I will deliver more than I'm paid for if you praise me enough to survive the week. I will be neutral if you do not get angry. These are not agreements. They are fantasies that leave enforcement with whoever benefits. The other party is rewarded for staying vague, for keeping you hopeful, for offering sentiment instead of structure. They pay nothing when they default. You pay with time, energy, and self-respect. Diplomacy requires leverage, not just sentiment. Where's yours? Incompetence, yes, but also in your willingness to walk away from a ruinous bargain. The most dangerous myth you learned as a child was that you have no exits. In truth, exits are carved by standards. When you say, I do not accept shouting, you open a door. When you say, I work with defined scope and fair timelines, you open another. When you say, I rest on weekends, you fortify a border. Not everyone will like your borders. That is proof they work. Now revise the Constitution. Article 1, no promises made in fear. Article 2, requests require terms. Article 3, respect measured in deeds, not moods. Article 4, conflict is not catastrophe. It is the meeting where reality is negotiated. Article 4, if negotiations fail, sovereignty remains with you. You enforce these with calm repetition, not rage. Expect pushback. Power adjusts slowly when access is reduced. Some alliances will dissolve, others will strengthen because clarity makes trust cheaper to uphold. Practice in small arenas. The friend who only calls when moving apartments meets a clause, happy to help Saturday between 10 and noon, if we trade time next month. The colleague who slides their project across your desk meets a price, I can take this if you cover tomorrow's meeting and send the update. The partner who equates love with constant availability meets truth. Love is not surveillance, it is respect for the hours we do not own. Watch who adapts and who storms. Storms reveal dependence, not devotion. Do not vilify the child who made the first laws. They were brilliant at surviving. They built a state with the tools available, appeasement as police, silence as tax, obedience as currency. Honor their genius, then retire the policies that no longer protect you. The invisible governor can remain an advisor, a memory that warns of real danger, but it must not hold the pen. You now write with numbers, evidence, and standards, not with trembling. In this light, people-pleasing is not a personality. It is a policy error. It mistakes yesterday's emergency for today's constitution. It bets that peace can be bought with your disappearing self. But peace purchased by surrender is not peace. It is a pause. Real peace comes from predictable rules, fair exchanges, and the courage to lose small comforts to win durable respect. Govern from the inside with adult law, and the outside world will meet a different country when it knocks. I keep my heart safe by enforcing my laws. The palace does not fall in a single roar. It sags, then cracks, then caves under the weight of its own kindness. You kept every door open so no one would feel unwelcome, and now the halls are crowded with demands that do not know your name. The banners look friendly, the music gentle, but the treasury is empty and the guard is asleep. You call it generosity. In statecraft, it is negligence. The inevitable has arrived. Burnout is a coup from within. It begins as a tremor in the hands, a blur at the edges of the day. You promise yourself this week will be different, and you sell tomorrow to pay for today. Your inbox becomes a river that never stops, and you try to drink it rather than dam it. At first it feels noble, being the one who can handle anything. But the body conducts its own election, and fatigue wins by a landslide. The ruler you perform cannot secure the capital that you truly are. You forget simple words. You avoid calls that once felt easy. What collapses is not willpower. It is a regime that never charged for entry, never enforced its borders, never audited its favors. When no price is posted, others spend you freely. Under such policy, collapse is not a surprise. It is the schedule. Picture an evening commute. You are in the car, engine humming, eyes dry as chalk. Messages stack like arrows in the notification bar. At a red light, you rehearse 3 apologies you don't owe, then commit to 5 favors no one earned. By the time you reach the door, your smile is a uniform, your voice a script. Inside, someone says, just one more thing. The coup succeeds without a gunshot. Joy becomes rumor. Every empire has limits. Yours refuses to admit them until the walls lean inward. Resentment enters next, the unpaid soldier who drinks in the barracks and fires without orders. You tried to keep peace by absorbing every skirmish, but you only fed a militia without discipline. Suppressed anger does not vanish. It gets drunk on humiliation and looks for a face to punish. Today it is the barista who gets your icy tone. Tomorrow a friend who asks a simple question. Then you aim it at yourself and become both warden and prisoner in one grim building. You snap in small places and feel monstrous afterward, because the targets were never the enemy. False harmony breeds later violence. By refusing honest conflict, you let rage accumulate interest. Now every slight triggers an avalanche that buries the nearest person, often the one who cares for you. They learn to tiptoe. You learn to distrust your own mouth. Watch The Office Monday morning. The colleague who always forgets the deadline dumps another file on your desk. In the afternoon, you return edits with a sweetness that coats the blade. The unpaid soldier smiles, sabotage disguised as sugar. Relationships degrade under such tactics. Your reputation follows. People sense the poison even when they don't name it. You were trying to avoid war. You built a civil one. Then comes shame with a mirror shaped like the crowd. The terror of disappointing others becomes a daily referendum. You check faces for approval the way a ruler checks the horizon for smoke. Every frown is a fire. Every silence a verdict. Authority drains from your spine into the floor. You outsource judgment to whoever speaks last and loudest. Now your choices are crafted by polling data. What will cause the fewest grimaces, the fewest texts, the fewest long sighs? You are not living, you are managing sentiment. Consider the party where you stand by the kitchen island, laughing at a joke that stings. You catch your reflection in the dark window and look away. Not because you are ugly, but because the face did not ask your consent to perform. Or consider the family call where you nod through a plan that disrespects your time. When the screen goes black, the shame arrives quiet, efficient, absolute. It whispers that you are only lovable when you are compliant, that any boundary is an act of betrayal. Under that spell, you draft confessions for crimes you did not commit. You apologize for delays in a thread that never sleeps. Shame Sip's mirror is distorted, but persuasive. It shows you a crowd that will exile you for the smallest no. It hides the truth. Many would respect you more if you led yourself. Fear makes you overestimate the cost of displeasing others and underestimate the cost of pleasing them. The first cost is a frown. The second cost is your life. A state that fears its citizens more than it fears disorder collapses. A person who fears disapproval more than they fear self-betrayal dissolves in the same way. This is how identity breaks, not by explosion, but by micro-compromises that nobody notices until the roof is in your lap. So you stand in the rubble of a beautiful facade. The tapestries were polite emails. The chandeliers were compliments. The corridors were favors that led into more favors. What remains is dust, and in the dust a simple clarity. Open borders invite plunder. You do not need to hate anyone to change the policy. You need to count. You need to charge. You need to close a gate and see who knocks instead of walks in. The path out begins with recognition, not despair. Burnout was a coup because the ruler refused to tax. Resentment was an unpaid army because honest conflict was outlawed. Shame was a mirror run by the crowd because you leased your reflection to them. You can reverse each decree. Rest becomes a law, not a luxury. Boundaries become tariffs, not tantrums. Approval becomes a courtesy, not a constitution. The palace can be rebuilt with fewer doors, thicker walls, and a court that rewards truth over flattery. The ones who love you will adapt to the new architecture. The ones who loved access will leave to find a weaker state. You are not ruined, you are refounding. The collapse was the diagnosis, not the death. End the soft siege with hard standards. Speak plainly, say no once, calmly, and move on. Schedule the hours that feed you and defend them like borders. Count reciprocity and collect it without shame. Make generosity strategic again, tied to respect and mutual cost. Your identity returns piece by piece as you enforce what you value. Not loud, not cruel, simply firm, like stone that remembers it is a wall. Peace without borders is surrender. I choose peace with walls. Love that costs you everything is not love. It is a contract you forgot to read. You were told that devotion is measured by how often you say yes. You were trained to see sweetness as safety, words as warranties, attention as proof. But in practice, most love that comes to a constant pleaser is used wrapped in ribbon. Alliances last only while interests align. When your labor fuels their comfort, they praise your kindness. When your boundary interrupts the supply, their affection expires at checkout. Stop confusing sentiment with structure. Measure what is real. Start with interest, not intimacy. Intimacy is warm, but interest is what decides. Who shares your costs? Who takes your risks? Who stands beside you when a decision harms them in the short term, but protects the relationship in the long term? The coworker who flatters you in the hallway but disappears when the deadline bites. Interest exposed. The friend who loves your availability but vanishes when you need a ride to the clinic. Interest exposed. The partner who calls you home yet refuses every basic responsibility when you're sick. Interest exposed. Sweet words are like banners in a parade. They add color to a day already decided by logistics and leverage. If a person's comfort always wins over your sanity, what you have is not intimacy. It is a contract that pays out only one way. Draw an incentive map. Where do the benefits flow? Who receives time, money, labor, or status? Because you rarely resist, who accepts costs, delays gratification, or risks disapproval to protect your well-being? In a real alliance, burdens are shared. Each side takes a turn carrying the weight that keeps the bond intact. In counterfeit closeness, you carry the weight and they carry the story. You're so generous, it's just who you are. Beware the story that freezes you in a role that starves you. A bond that requires your exhaustion is a bond designed to fail after it has consumed everything you had to give. Now run the audit of reciprocity. Keep a simple ledger. Requests versus returns. Words versus deeds. This is not romanceless. It is realism that protects romance from rot. List the last 10 asks. Who asked, what they requested, what you delivered, and what came back in time, effort, or respect. If the columns never balance, you are subsidizing someone's comfort. Move to deeds versus declarations. Where family is a declaration. Did they show up when you moved apartments? Did they respect your budget when the bill arrived? You're the only one who understands me is a declaration. Did they learn to understand you, or did they use the line as a code to avoid ever trying? Try it at work. A manager praises your team spirit then hands you weekend tasks because you always come through. You write in the ledger what you give and what you get. If your deliverables rise while your opportunity, compensation, and authority do not, you are not being developed. You are being mined. Try it in dating. Someone texts all day, calls you incredible, and refuses to set plans. Your ledger notes a pattern. Their compliments cost them nothing. Your availability costs you everything. Niceness without commitments is not kindness. It is camouflage for inertia. Use thresholds, not moods. Decide what you require to keep contributing. If the ledger hits a deficit beyond your limit, you renegotiate or you exit. Do not announce it with trumpets. Enforce it with calm repetition. The first time you keep your price, those who cared only for your discount will protest. That is proof your accounting was needed. Then learn the truth. Machiavelli knew, respect is the true romance. Constant yeses do not create closeness, they create contempt. People trust what has edges. A nation without borders invites raids. A person without boundaries invites handlers. Respect is erotic because it is reliable. It says, I will show up as promised and I will not sell myself for peace. It says, I can be counted on because I count myself. This is not cruelty, it is courtship with math. Make limits visible and steady. Tell the friend who loves your late-night counseling, I'm available tonight until 10, then I sleep. Tell the colleague who offloads I can help if you cover my morning stand-up and send the client update. Tell the partner who equates love with instant responses, I value depth, not constant access. I respond after work unless it's urgent. Watch what happens. Those who respect you will adapt quickly, often with relief. Your clarity helps them know the shape of you. Those who only wanted your compliance will escalate guilt, then drift. Let them. You lose very little when you lose exploitation. Respect feeds intimacy over time because it makes affection safer. When you say yes, it means yes. Not I'm scared to refuse. When you give, it's because you chose, not because you feared exile. The bond can breathe because neither party is smothered by duty masquerading as care. A boundary is not a wall against love. It is a wall against invasion so the garden inside can grow. That is romance. Trust earned through predictable conduct, kindness tied to responsibility, desire that survives disagreement. Reframe it clearly. If someone loves only your usefulness, they do not love you. If your needs are always a crisis, your silence is the product they came to buy. If your limits are treated like insults, you are negotiating with appetite, not affection. With this lens, your history reorganizes. Old heartbreaks look less like destiny and more like mispriced contracts, and your future opens fewer clients, better clients, fewer friends, truer friends, a partner who would rather keep you whole than keep you convenient. Your task is simple, not easy. Map interests, audit reciprocity, make respect your minimum, speak in terms, not apologies, enforce quietly, let the market of your life correct. The ones who value you will pay in time, effort, and integrity. The rest will look elsewhere for a bargain, and that is their right. Your right is to stop being a bargain. I trade only in respect-backed love. A prince must imitate the fox and the lion. The one cannot protect himself from traps, and the other cannot defend himself from wolves. You do not need to roar at everyone. You need to be clear, and you need to be clever. Power is not cruelty. It is control. Sovereignty is a daily practice. Steady tone, firm lines, smart timing. You will not beg for peace. You will make it. Begin with red lines, once calmly, publicly. Non-negotiables lose force when you announce them every week with a new story. Choose them carefully, then speak them like law. I do not accept shouting. I don't work unpaid overtime. I will not discuss personal matters in group chats. No apology, no sermon, just state and stand. When someone tests the boundary, you enforce it with the same voice you used to declare it, not louder, not softer. The power is in sameness. Picture a Monday meeting. The chronic interrupter begins their usual takeover. You raise a hand, not to plead, but to pause. I'll finish this point, then I'm happy to hear yours. You complete the sentence. You do not debate your right to speak. You exercise it. After the meeting, you send one short note to the team. Let's allow people to finish their points. It keeps decisions tight. That's public and calm. The message travels. The first time you hold the line, some will grumble. The second time, they will adjust. The third time, they will predict you and behave accordingly. Predictable enforcement is how respect becomes muscle memory. At home, the same rule holds. A relative calls at midnight with drama that always becomes your emergency. You reply in the morning, I take calls after 8 unless it's urgent. Text urgent if it's an emergency. The next late call goes unanswered until daybreak. You are not cruel. You are consistent. Your silence is not punishment. It is policy. You show the hours of your border. People learn quickly when access changes price. Now practice tactical no's and surgical yeses. Timing is your liver. You do not answer every request on impact. You say, let me check my load. I'll confirm by 3 p.m. The pause cools pressure. It turns compulsion into choice. In that space, you ask the only question that matters, what are the terms? A tactical no sounds like this. I can't take that by Friday and I won't do it well if I rush. If Monday works, I'll own it. Notice the structure, firm refusal, reason tied to quality, alternative offered. You are not collapsing the bridge. You are redirecting traffic to a safer road. Another version, no to that scope. Yes to this subset by the deadline. You shape the work to fit the time, not the other way around. A surgical yes arrives with conditions attached. Yes, if we lock requirements today and you handle client sign-off. Yes, if we trade, I'll cover your shift. You cover next Wednesday. Yes, once as a pilot. If it works for both of us, we can standardize. Put every yes on rails. Rails prevent derailment. Without conditions, yes is a confession. With conditions, yes is a contract. Read compliments like offers. You're the only one who can do this. Good, then the price is priority, not flattery. I'll do it if we move my other task off my plate. If praise vanishes when terms appear, it was bait. Smile, step back, and let the silence do the sorting. Use scripts you can memorize under pressure for scope creep. Happy to help, what are we dropping to make space? For guilt trips, I hear you. My answer is still no, for just this once. If it must be once, we document that it is once. For last-minute demands, I don't do same day unless it's an emergency defined by X. Is this that? These lines are tools, not theater. Tools save time, and time keeps you sovereign. Then build the fortress that makes all of this possible. Alternatives. Options are the true walls of a free life. When you have them, you negotiate without fear. When you lack them, you barter your dignity for oxygen. Your alternatives are skills, networks, and savings. Skills first. Become excellent at something that travels, design that sells, code that runs, words that move, numbers that reveal truth, deals that close. Excellence is leverage because it creates demand. Every new capability is a new exit. You will not shout to be valued. The work will whisper for you in rooms you haven't entered yet. Networks next. Not a pile of contacts, but a web of reciprocal allies. Take calls when you can give. Not only when you need, introduce useful people to one another. Share information that helps others win. Keep records of who shows up when it costs them something. Your allies are the ones who move when it would be easier to stay still. That list is your emergency lane. Savings, always. Even modest reserves lower the temperature of every conversation. With 1 month of expenses, you speak straighter. With 6 months, you negotiate like an owner. You do not need a fortune, you need runway time to say no to the wrong offer while you wait for the right one. Money is not just currency, it is permission to be principled. Consider 3 quick scenes. In the first, a freelancer with no buffer accepts abusive timelines and smiles through weekends. In the second, the same freelancer has 3 months saved and 2 steady clients. They say, I can't meet that deadline. Here's a realistic plan. The client either adapts or disappears, and either outcome is fine. In the third, the freelancer adds a new skill and joins a small collective that shares overflow. Now there is choice, and with choice comes tone, clear, warm, unafraid. Or think about dating. With no alternatives, you tolerate ghosting, vague plans, and rules made by convenience. With alternatives, you articulate standards. I prefer scheduling, I value follow-through, and I will not chase. Some matches vanish. Good. Absence is a message that arrived on time. The ones who remain meet you at level ground. Reputation is your public armor. Guard it like a treasury. People should know 2 things about you. You are fair and you are firm. You deliver what you promise and you do not promise under threat. When you err, you repair quickly and without excuse. When others err, you forgive once with clarity and consequence. Then you reset access. The story that travels about you should be simple. This person is good to work with and impossible to push around. None of this asks you to be hard. It asks you to be whole. The lion is your enforcement. The fox is your timing. Together they build a life that does not lurch between martyr and tyrant. You will still be generous, but strategically where it strengthens alliances and honors your limits. You will still be kind, but intelligently, where kindness does not purchase permission to plunder you. Here is your daily drill. Morning, write your 3 red lines at the top of a page. Midday, rehearse 1 tactical no and 1 surgical yes. Evening, invest 1 hour in your fortress. Learn, connect, or save. Small acts, repeated calmly, reshape your state. The world will test you, let it. You are ready. I carry a quiet spine and a clever mind. Peace is a policy, not a mood. Peace is not found in applause. It is built like a wall, brick by brick, line by line. You do not gamble with storms. You prepare for weather. Quiet power is the outcome of steady choices, repeated until they become reputation. Not noise, not drama, just a pattern people can trust. Begin with reputation as quiet armor. You choose an image that is true, fair, firm, not easily swayed. You deliver work when you say you will. You say no without flinching. You do not trade your standards for a compliment or a crisis. In meetings, your tone is even. In conflict, your facts are ready. You protect confidences and keep receipts. This is not performance, it is policy. Over time, the room relaxes because they know who you are on Monday is who you will be on Friday. Influence grows where volatility is low and standards are high. Think of the manager who hands you a task because fire is everywhere. You do not absorb chaos. You narrow the scope and set the schedule. Here is what I can own. Here is what I need from you. Here is the deadline I will hit. The building may still shake, but your corner does not. People return to the safest harbor. Let your name become that harbor, not because you say yes to everything, but because your yes means something and your no stands. Now practice generosity with edges. Kindness without limits becomes extraction. Kindness with limits feels safe. You give in ways that preserve you. I can help Saturday morning, not the whole weekend. I'll review the draft after dinner. I won't join another call. I can lend this amount. I can't be the bank. Edges make gifts clean. The receiver knows where gratitude belongs and where future requests should stop. Without edges, kindness becomes a blur that breeds entitlement. With edges, kindness becomes a promise you can keep. Carry this into love and friendship. You cook, you listen, you show up within the boundaries that keep you honest. You refuse the roles that once hollowed you out. You do not play therapist to someone who refuses help. You do not play assistant to someone who refuses responsibility. Your care is strong because it is aimed. You give what you can sustain again tomorrow. That is how bonds outlast moods. Now the daily edict, keep it simple enough to obey under pressure. Protect your time, honor your word, enforce your lines. Protect your time by planning it. Put your priorities on the calendar and protect them as if they were a meeting with a head of state. A workout, a book, a walk, these are not luxuries, they are fuel. Honor your word by promising less and delivering exactly. If you miss, repair fast. Reputation is built not by never failing, but by how you fix what you break. Enforce your lines with calm, not heat. One reminder, one consequence. Then move on. Use small rituals to keep the state of you stable. Morning, write 3 sentences you will live by today. Noon, revisit one decision and check it against your standards. Night, count reciprocity and gratitude, then close the book. These habits cool the blood and tighten the guard. Sovereignty is not a speech, it is a schedule. There will be days when the old reflex returns and you reach for the easy, yes, forgive the impulse and return to the plan. Power is not perfection, it is course correction. The more you practice, the less it feels like effort, and the more it feels like weather you can predict. In the end, you become reliable to others because you are reliable to yourself. People rest in your presence because you rest in your policies. You stop chasing peace and start manufacturing it. The world still tests you, but the tests no longer pull you apart. Quiet power is not the absence of pressure. It is the presence of principle under pressure. I keep peace by practicing it.